All right. Hello, everyone. Let's see if you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can. Alrighty. Okay. Sounds good. Looks good on my end. Let me know if you guys are having any issues in the chat there. But everything on my end looks good. So, welcome to the stream, everyone. Looks like we've got a couple people in here. I'm anticipating a couple more are going to be filling in here in just a moment. So, we'll go ahead and give them a second. But yeah, so for anyone watching this video in the future, this is a projection mapping live stream. I'm doing this live, almost more like a class, where people can comment in the live chat here, and they can ask questions. They can ask anything they need to there, and I can hopefully see it. I have the live chat here just off screen, and I should be able to see what you guys say and respond to it. So if you guys are watching this in the future, then obviously you can't respond in the live chat. But you can still comment down below, and I can answer there. But I am going to be going over everything I did to create Baird Manor's Christmas and Halloween projection show for this year. And I've been getting a lot of requests to do this. And like I said, instead of doing this as a regular video and doing it as a live stream, I'm doing it this way so that I can answer your guys' questions live, and I can give hopefully more in-depth and better responses. I don't know how many people are actually going to be coming in live. We may not actually get very many. The majority of people are probably going to be watching this after the fact anyways, but I thought I would do it live just for the few of you that are able to attend. So yeah, once again, you should be able to comment in the chat there if you have any questions or anything like that. All right, let's see here. Yeah, okay, cool. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I am going to go ahead and try to keep this as categorized as possible. I'm going to try to talk about it in sections as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do that super great because it's kind of all over the place with this. Especially for the Halloween show, I did not do my organization very well, but I have kind of a bullet point list here that I want to go down of everything that I want to cover. And so I kind of want to cover all of that first, and then I would like to save the majority of questions for the end of the stream, kind of like a little Q&A. That way, we can just, for anybody watching this video in the future, they can just watch it more like a normal video, and we don't have to interrupt it with questions and things like that. But feel free to comment still if it's something like super relevant to what we're talking about right at the moment. I'll hopefully see it and be able to respond to it. But then at the very end, I can get all of you guys' questions, and then I can go back and show you anything that I didn't explain super well, or I didn't cover that you wanted me to, or if you thought I missed something, or if there was anything in specific you wanted, I can go back and I can show you guys that inside of After Effects or Premiere or whichever program we're in. So I'll go ahead and pop up the screen here. You guys should be able to see that. I know that there is a little bit of a delay, so hopefully it's not too bad. But we're going to go ahead and start in After Effects here with the Christmas show. So this show is a lot more simplistic than the Halloween show. Also, I'm assuming that everybody watching, or the majority of you guys, have seen at least the Halloween or Christmas projection show. If you haven't, then there are links for that in the description below. Obviously, this will be spoiling it. Not that there's really that much to spoil, but just a warning there. So we're going to start with the Christmas show just because it's a lot simpler. It's more organized. I knew what I was doing better than I did for the Halloween show, so it's going to be a little easier to understand for the first introductory part of it, and then we'll move on to the Halloween show down here, this one right here, a little bit later. So we'll go ahead and start here. This is just the project file. It looks nice and clean right here. In reality, it's very complicated. If I go into the compositions folder here, you can see all of the different compositions I have that run through the whole show. Also, I'm not going to be going into a ton of detail on how After Effects works or how to do everything that I've done in After Effects, because this isn't a tutorial for After Effects. This is a tutorial for projection map, or not even really a tutorial, just a behind the scenes look at projection mapping. So I am going to be showcasing some of the effects I did, how I did a lot of it, but I'm not going to be diving into all the nitty-gritty details of pre-comping and 3D lighting and using mats and tracking and stuff like that. because that's all just After Effects knowledge that you can find all over YouTube, and I don't really need to waste time on this stream talking about that. So just a fair warning there. And so, yeah, I showed you guys the composition. This is the resources folder that I have. This has all of the video files, image files, textures, sound files, anything that I used to create the visuals of the show. And then I have my solids folder, which is just all of the solid layers that I mainly use for adjustments and for other effects. I'll get into that in a little bit as well. Okay, so this is the main composition that I always have my shows rendered out in, and I have that in the Halloween show here as well. This one's obviously a lot bigger. I can actually expand that here so you guys can see it. So this is the main composition for the Halloween show, and then this is the main composition for the Christmas show. So a lot simpler, a lot easier, but still quite I wouldn't say advanced, but definitely in depth. So this is, like I said, what I render out in the very end. Inside of each of these, I've got the pre-comps. I can turn on the background layer so you can see the reference here. This is the map of the house that we took. Jeff has a great video over on Baird Manor on that YouTube channel that goes into how we created this map and how we got this image, because this is the foundation of the mapping. You can't projection map your house or anything unless you have a map of that. So this is just the image map that we use for that. I have that just disabled here because obviously you don't want to render that out in the final composition, or you're going to have those lines projected onto your house. So this is the countdown. It's pretty basic. As you can see, everything is in the right perspective, and this is actually just the video file. I made this countdown inside of After Effects for the Halloween show and then just copied it over for the Christmas show. I'll show you guys how I do that in the when we get to the Halloween show. But anyways, we've just got like the countdown, and then it moves on to this first scene with the snowman, and it kind of goes through, and then we've got this house scene. And so this is just a sequential order of all of the different scenes in the show, and this is basically what the projection show looks like from a technical standpoint. So I guess we'll go ahead and just start with the first scene here. This is fairly basic. It's just snow, and it has just this background image along with these little animated snowmen. So if I go ahead and click into this composition, because remember this is just a pre-comp, I open it, you can see all of the layers that are inside of that pre-comp, as well as, guess what, more pre-comps. And pre-comps are essential for keeping things organized and being able to apply mass effects, because if I wanted to do something, for instance with the snow up here, and I wanted to map it to the correct shape of the house, it would be a lot more complicated to do that with the actual layer that has what's known as power pin. Let's see, I believe if I turn it, oh, that's the wrong way, there we go. I just got to click the effect. The power pin effect is what allows me to change the perspective, and this is a tool that I use all the time in After Effects. It is the main tool that I use to map the perspective, as well as using 3D layers. But this is the power pin effect, and it's very, very useful. So for instance, right here, if I were to just use the power pin effect without pre-comping it, then it would be kind of an issue, because just the way that masks work, it wouldn't work very well. So pre-comping is very important. Again, I won't be going into a ton of the details on how to pre-comp or anything like that, just kind of giving you a brief overview of why you need to do it, because it's important to do it. And then I use my masks here. This allows me to cut it into the correct shape, and you can see I can drag this around, and so it would cut or expose more areas. So I just have that mapped exactly there. That builds out with all of the rest of these layers. We've got the front panels, the side panels, the garage panels, everything like that. Then we've got the actual video layers for the snowmen, which I'll go into this in a moment too, of where I find resources and all of that. This is kind of just a brief overview of everything. And then, I've got all of my other layers. This is just the background layer. I've got this layer, which is the snowball composition for what creates that little snow blast or hit on the window there, and all of that good stuff. So that's kind of just a brief look at the pre-comping and how the show is laid out. And obviously we have some more complex scenes like this one, 3D lighting. Again, we'll get into all of that in a minute. and this is like the shop scene, and we've got all of the layers built out individually and things like that. So anyways, I know that was kind of a little disorganized there as we're going over everything, but now we're going to talk about the official first point that I wanted to get into here, and that is building out scene backgrounds. So that is building out the textures that you see like in the very back here that kind of are the foundation for everything. So this wood paneling, as well as down here, and this wood edging, and we have that in all the different scenes, as well as, which scene? It's this one right here. Oops, nope, sorry, I should probably just read my layer names. It's this one right here. You can see, we've got this background that is the foundation for the entire look of your scene. And so the way that you do this, and to get it in the correct perspectives, it all depends on really what you're doing, but my process for doing it is always starting with just a basic texture. So like for instance, if I go into my Christmas folder for the projection mapping here and my resources file, you can see I started, for instance, let's do the brick texture. This is the image that I started with, and it is just a seamless texture. It just loops over, and then I take that into After Effects. I actually have a nice little behind the scenes look at it for you guys here. I take that in, and I for this scene in specific, I needed it to be colored, and rather than doing that with like a tint effect or something like that, I just used this green layer, and you'll see what that's for in a minute. But this is really where I wanted to talk about. I take the layer and I rotate it in 3D space and align it properly, and I've also duplicated it a couple times over here so that it fits in the right scale, and because it was obviously too big, and that's an important thing when you're looking up textures, is to find ones that are tileable or seamless, so that you can seamlessly make it as big or as small as you'd like. So I start by doing that and rotating it in 3D. I could show you as well in the project file here. It'll just take a little bit longer to load. So if I go into the stone, I believe, oh nope, that is the wrong stone layer. I've still not got the best organization here. I know I'm missing it, but it's somewhere in here. Oh, it's in the siding. Duh. Okay, so like right here, this is the actual layers themselves. You can see they're just rotated in 3D space. Isn't hard to do in After Effects. If you don't see this, you click the little toggle switches and modes button, and then you enable the 3D layer. And what that allows you to do is use like the rotate tool to orient the piece in 3D, like this. And then you can use that to map as well. But just for the sake of things running a little bit smoother here, so that After Effects, we only have to use After Effects when we have to. I had pre-rendered out these images for you guys. But yeah, this is rotated in 3D space, aligned up properly. Then I use my masks to punch the proper holes and to align it in the exact correct shapes, and get that lined up properly. Another important thing when you're doing background textures and stuff like that is that any horizon lines you have, for instance right here with the windows, you have it lined up properly, because like we have a scene in the Halloween show. If I can pop that up here, this is the horrible disaster of a mess that is the Halloween projection show folder. But if we jump up to this one right here, it's going to be in this scene. Well, actually, we'll jump to this one. You can see here how I did not align this properly. So you can see that the texture up here, it's somewhat lined up with the angle on this one, but the horizon lines with the roof and the window frames there is off, so it throws off the illusion. And same thing with this one down here on the garage. I had to remap this entire thing like twice. So I got a little bit tired of it, and I did get a little bit sloppy with it near the end, so I didn't really care too much about it. But I made sure that in the Christmas show that this is where we were, that I made sure that I aligned those properly. That'll just really help sell the illusion that you're creating another texture or exterior look to whatever you're mapping. Then I went and I used that green solid layer that I have here. I just set the blending mode, which I don't remember exactly which one I used. I think it was right here. This is what I used. It does not say what blending mode it was. Oh yeah, there it is. It's in the multiply blending mode. So I put the siding layer on top of the solid color, and then that would allow just the darker parts to peek through, which in the end would give it a colored texture. And that's just how I do it, as opposed to using a tint effect, because it just gives you a little bit more control and a little bit more depth. I like it a little bit better. I do use tint effects all the time, though, as you'll see as we get further down. But for that specific case, using blending modes is really, really helpful. That's also a thing when you have your resource files, like if you're using pre-made projections or things like that. If you take it into After Effects, then you will always have, if it's just an MP4 file at least, you're always going to have a black background to it. And so a way to remove that is to use your blending modes. And you can use it, a screen is I think the most common one for removing just a solid black background. And so that's how you can remove those solid backgrounds and have a nice transparent image. Like if you're using a ghost or something, which we have in the Halloween show, then it will remove that background and allow you to put it onto a transparent layer. And I'll show you that as well once we get into the ghosts section of the Halloween show. But then we go down here. This is now how I do the siding of the backgrounds. As you can see, I start just by getting a texture, really, really roughly stretching it out, kind of orienting it in the right place. And then I trim it up just a little bit, make it a little easier to see. Then I go in and I map it using masks just to fit it into all of the proper shapes. And then after we get to that point, is that zoomed out all the way? Yeah. Okay. We'll have to pop up the folder then, because for some reason it is not letting me look at it. So then after that, I went through and I added just these subtle little accents everywhere along. This was just done with the shape layer. So same color as the edging, but I just drew square masks along here and just used the stroked pen tool to make some nice little shapes, just to add some more accents to it. Next, I tinted it all white so it matched in with the rest of the shutters, and so that it would just kind of all tie together a little bit nicer. Then I use what is probably the most important thing, in my opinion, for making something look super realistic, and that is your shadows. Adding shadows, especially for this scene where we have like this part of the gutter that's supposed to be protruding out in this part of the eave, and then we've also got this bar here that's supposed to be like it's sitting in front of the house rather than just flat on the house. This using drop shadows and shadowing will really, really emphasize the 3D effect. When you actually don't have any 3D in real life, you can emphasize that using drop shadows. And After Effects has a wonderful built-in little feature called drop shadow. If I find, let's see, the eaves and siding right here. Oh, that is not the right one. It would be, let's do one maybe like, what layer? Trying to find one that has a good drop shadow on it. I believe that would be that is the eaves and siding composition. It's just in here. You can't see it super well because there's just a black background in here, but like for instance on the shape layer where I did these little squares, you can see I have the drop shadow effect, and I just have that the opacity lowered a little bit. I usually put the distance really, really low and then just amp up the softness, and that will give you that kind of dispersed drop shadow effect, or kind of just outer halo to it that makes it look a little more 3D and have a little bit more depth. I've also got that layer on top of the eaves here, so it kind of looks like it's protruding out a little farther than these wood beams that stick out underneath the rest of the eaves. Alright, and then the final part of it is the lighting. 3D lighting. That is how you create these really, really, really nice looking final polished image. So here I have, like I already showed you, the background and everything, but with the addition of the 3D lighting, it really makes it pop, and it really ties it all together, especially in these windows. It makes it look like they're glowing, makes it look like they're alive, and it is very, very awesome to see something flat and ugly like this turn into something super nice and detailed and warm and cozy and bright like this, just by using a few 3D lights. So I have a whole section that I'm going to do on 3D lighting here in a minute. I'm not going to go into all of the specs of how to do 3D lighting. I'm just going to be showing you how I did it, because I think that lighting is a huge, huge part of making it look realistic and tying your image together. So this is, again, flat lighting makes a big difference. All right, moving on, we are going to now look at resources, where I get all of my resources, because this is a question I've been asked a lot is, do you make all your resources? Where do you find all of your images? What sites do you buy them from? Where do you find your projection files that you use? All that kind of stuff. I'm going to answer that all nice and easy for you here. So basically, Google. Google is your friend, 100% Google. That's where I get pretty much everything. Like, we have this folder here of just all of these pre-bought projections from Atmos and Spectral and other places like that we've collected over the years. And I have used some of these. I did definitely use a lot more of these in the Halloween show than I did the Christmas show. But we definitely did use these. So that's very nice to have, just kind of that. So obviously Spectral and Atmos, those are great sources. But for actual textures and things like that, I'll show you, I guess we'll just start with the Christmas folder. My resources folder here. This is literally all that went into the Christmas show. All of the files, video files, texture files, everything is in this folder right here. So you can see we've got some green screen footage, for instance, in the shop scene, or Santa's workshop scene. This is just one I found on YouTube that was free. You can download it. It already had a green screen background, so I just keyed that out using the key light effect in After Effects, and I threw that in. Works well. Same thing with the snowmen here. They were one I found online, free to download, throw it in, and boom, there you go. A lot of the work done for you there. So green screen stuff is incredible. You can find a lot of that on YouTube, a lot of free stock sites, things like that. Same thing with these presents. I've had a couple people ask where I got these that show up in the windows, and they just loop over. These are from Production Crate. Now, Production Crate is the majority of it is a paid stock footage website. They have mostly visual effects stock footage for compositing and film and things like that. Like, they've got lightning, explosions, muzzle flashes, all sorts of stuff like that. But they also have a holiday section where they have some of these really cool ones. I also got some of this other stuff for it. I can't load the MOV files because they're super slow and they don't want to play properly, so I'm not going to try to mess with that while live streaming. But yeah, all of this is from Production Crate. All of it was on their free side of Production Crate. They do have a paid side, which is very, very costly, especially I think for what you get. Like, for some people that might be in their budget. But for me, I just untick the paid option and it just pulls up all the free options. And so that's where I got everything here, is from the free section of the holiday part of Production Crate. So I think the website is like productioncrate.com. I think it's just that. It's pretty easy. But yeah, I definitely go there if you want to get some of the stuff. That's where I got the giant spiral trees that are at the end. Let me back out of all of this. The particle finale here, these trees that you see here, I made all of the particles and the lens flares for it, but the actual fairy dust trees, those came from Production Crate. So did all of the gingerbread men in the gingerbread scene, which is this one right here, these guys right here, and as well as the particle, or the gingerbread explosion with like the candy canes that's at the very end. This guy right here, he was from Production Crate as well. So Production Crate, that's where I got all of my Christmas effects. Pretty cool. Image files, of course, Google again. I just searched up, like, hey, I was looking for a wood texture, so I type in seamless wood paneling texture, and it would come up with this one right here and a couple other ones. And then I found this one, and I'd build out these texture resources, and again, they're seamless, they're tileable, so while they might not actually be that high a resolution, as you can see, that's actually pretty bad resolution. Once it's tiled and put into the show, and then you've edited it and you've got your color and everything on there, let's see, right here, then you can see that it actually doesn't look too bad. And this is I'm using half resolution right now. If I pop this up to full resolution, then you can see it doesn't look too bad. And it's again a paneling thing, like I showed with the brick texture for up here in the opening scene. It's simple. You just take it and you repeat it in 3D space. And let's see which one is this guy right here. I would go into here, and then in the wall, you can see I've also got even more pre-comps within here. If I go to the wood wall, You can see here are my actual layers, again, pre-comped into individual faces of the house so that I can mask it properly. But if I open them up, you can see it's just these individual layers looped over, rotated in 3D space. And then obviously we work our way towards, we mask it, and we put it all together like this. Then I go in here and add my other layers, and I do my lighting. But yeah, so seamless, loopable textures, those are your friend. That's how I create all of the backgrounds. That's how I create the ground. That's how I create everything, basically. And same thing with like anything else I'm needing, like the windows or this image here is just all of these really cute like little ribbons or patterns, I guess, Christmas patterns. I use that for the very subtle edging that is along the once again, this scene right here. I'm thrown off just because it's such a small comp. But yeah, right there. Also, it looks like I left a layer on. That's something that you want to be cautious of too, especially if you have the organization like me. Sometimes you can leave a layer on like this and it'll screw everything up. So I don't remember where I left that on, so that's going to have to just be like that for right now because I'm not going to dig through and find it. But yeah, that's when you start building up with a lot of layers, it starts getting very complicated, and so you have to keep your organization clean. Then as well for like all of these presents and ornaments and candies and garland and the little panels and the buttons and everything else in here has all come just from Googling YouTube and saying what, or Googling Facebook, or oh my gosh, Google image search. That's what I meant. I don't know why I had a stroke there, but Google image search. I'm looking up just whatever I need. I searched this one, wood garage door texture. Boom, that came up. I just cut out the windows, did some color adjustments to it, and it worked quite well. And then of course we also have other video files, like these are just ones I found on stock sites of the gears, and then I would remove the background and then comp them together to make it a little more original and a little less, shaped. Like for instance, these ones right here are actually in shapes, like we've got a 1 and an 8 and stuff like that. So I think I just used these two, and then I just duplicated and scaled them over to make it look like a bunch of different sets of gears. And then as well as, of course, stuff we film ourselves, which that's what Hauntworks is. That's where I, create these kind of effects for people who are wanting to create their own projection shows or just wanting to project them in their windows like you can do with Atmos or spectral illusion effects. So this is part of the pack, this final scene here that you see with the, we'll just go, oops, I backed out a little too far there, with the really fun little scene of of the elf and he knocks over the tree and all of that. That was a really fun little thing to film. This is a pack that will be coming out separately. It's going to be called Escape Clause. I hope to release it before Christmas. I mainly just have to finish up the sound design on it, but it's pretty close. So you guys will actually be able to buy this scene. It won't be laid out exactly the same way, but it will be all of the individual videos so that you can put them into your own show like that, or you can just project them as standalone effects in your window. And so yeah, those are my main places for getting resources, is Google image search, YouTube, and then filming stuff ourselves. And you'll get tons and tons of results that way. Like I said, that's how I got literally everything for the show, is by doing that. So there's your answer to where I get my resources. Next up, we are going to talk a little bit about the overall kind of design and layout of creating the show. So for this, we're going to jump back over to the Halloween show now. And this one obviously is a lot bigger. I had 6 months for this one, and I had a month for that Christmas show. So obviously this one's a lot more in-depth, a lot more detailed, has a story to it, whereas the Christmas show is kind of just a cute little fun Santa's workshop, whatever kind of thing. But this actually has like a lore and a story behind it, and it's Baird Manor's, original version of Haunted Mansion, or whatever you want to call it. So the layout and the composition of scenes is something that it can definitely be learned, but it's definitely a lot easier if you just have an eye for composition, and that's true for anything, for film, photography, graphic design, anything. If you just have an eye for composition, it makes everything so much easier. And that definitely applies here as well, because you've got scenes like this where it looks great all tied together. But if you break it down into its individual layers, this is going to be a massive mess of 3D lights here. If you break it down into its individual layers, it doesn't look that great, right? If we go through and we remove all of our color matching and everything like that, we go from this to this. So much of it is going to be your 3D lighting and color correction, but a lot of it too is just finding the right textures and making them fit together, and finding ones. Oh, that's the fire scene. Whoops. And finding ones that that work well together. For instance, like these brick textures down here, they somewhat match with these ones up here, especially when you have the color correction in there. And the same thing with the siding up on here and the wood texture here. I don't know, this is more color correction, but it kind of matches with the wall color here. So finding textures and images that all mesh together super well and give you a nice polished finished look is definitely what you want to go for. But you also have to be able to have the eye to start with it looking bad. Like for instance, if I go to, where would be a good one to show this? I guess we can do maybe the brick. We'll just jump in here. These are the actual layers themselves. And when you have them all put together into this, it doesn't look good. It's not mapped or anything. It doesn't fit. You've got this really weird, you can obviously tell that it's tiled. It doesn't look good. But then you jump into here, you get it masked, you add on, your bottom layers, and then you add your edging and all of that. And it starts to tie together and doesn't look too bad. Then you do your 3D lighting and your final color correction. And it actually, well, I jump back to the fire again. Then it looks real nice. Especially when you're laying out scenes, like I guess this would be a good example to show you in the Christmas show, is this scene right here. Obviously has a lot going on, right? It's got a lot of depth within here. You've even got this hallway that goes way down. You've got all of these layers here. You've got the foreground presence, the elves, the trees, the desk, the bigger presence, the stack even further behind. There's just a lot of detail that has to go into this, and that's what makes it so pleasing to look at, is just the vast color and detail and vibrance that the scene has. But putting this together without having a reference or without having a solid idea of what you're wanting is definitely tricky. So this scene, I think, out of the entire Halloween and Christmas show, this one was the one that took me the longest to compose and make look good. Like I originally had a lot more smaller gears, like around here, trying to fill it out. That's before I figured out these panels, and I didn't have any presence down here, and so I was trying to fill out the space because it looked empty, but I also didn't want to clutter it, and so it's really hard to find that balance. And for me, I think that this works out quite well, because you've got lots of diversity, you've got lots of presence, you've got garland with ornaments, you've got the gears, you've got the nice background, and it looks full but doesn't look too cluttered, in my opinion at least. I mean, to some it might, but to me, I think this is pretty well balanced. So it's all just about finding what your personal preference is, what you think fits together best, and just how it all works. And so, like I said, composure is important, but also when it comes to that is the coloring and lighting. Coloring and lighting does so much for this. Like I showed you earlier with the Christmas show, with this opening scene here, that the lighting will drastically change how this looks. Oh yeah, I forgot that it's broken. But if I'm going to show you guys here in the Halloween show actually for this. So this is, you guys have kind of already seen it with this scene, but we are going to jump to the ballroom scene, which is this. No, this is the portrait scene. Oh gosh, it's been so long since I've been in this project file. It's going to, again, take forever to load because this is a very big project file. Again, sorry if the stream is lagging or dropping frames a little bit when it's loading in After Effects. Looks like it might have been a little bit there, but hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. So anyways, this is the final look of the portrait, or the ballroom scene. And this is also another one that I really struggled with filling out and trying to make look full, because originally I wanted this scene to be like a Haunted Mansion ballroom scene with just loads of ghosts everywhere, lots of detail, so much going on, and it just, you could look at it forever. Every time you'd see it, you'd see something different. That obviously didn't happen. I messed around, especially with this little hole here in the side where these eyes come in. We'll go ahead and maybe, I think they should be activated right about here. I'm also going to turn this down to half just for rendering's sake. Yeah, so right there, I struggled for so long to try to put something on this wall because this just completely blank didn't fit, and I was like, I need something there. So like I put a clock, I even put like mirrors, I put other portraits, I put I don't even remember what else I put, but I put a lot of different things there. None of them fit, and then I just decided to punch a hole in the wall and put some eyes in it. And this is where Atmos came in handy, is for these eyes and for these ballroom ghosts. They were really great on that. And, you know, we were using the oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of whatever this is. Macabre Manor, that's what it is. They even said that they were intentionally trying to make ones that felt like Haunted Mansion and Disney. So it was really nice to have that resource that I could use. And then obviously we made the Dueling Ghost ourselves. That's a pretty well known fact, and that's definitely been Hauntworks' most popular effect is the Dueling Ghost, and my personal favorite as well. But filling out the scene was definitely a tricky thing to do. And when it comes to the lighting and coloring of it, if we jump into here, you can see the disgusting mess of lights that I have going on here. And again, this is the ballroom scene. It's in the form of layers. It's not very well put together. I did not do any good organization. You could even see that a lot of the compositions have improper names, things like that. I kind of just threw organization out the window. I said, nah, I don't care. I'm never going to use this file again. I'll just make it work right now. But then, of course, now I'm coming back and having to look at all of it. But this is the ballroom scene. This is definitely the biggest scene. Like, if you look at this scene, this ballroom scene, oh yeah, the layers are locked. If you look at this ballroom scene compared to the workshop scene from the Christmas show, I jump in here, and you look at it, look how much more organized it is. And I've still got compositions, and I open them up, and they've got a lot of layers, because this is just like all of the ornament layers and stuff like that. But it's just a lot more well put together, organized, and it's cleaner, because I knew I was going to be going back and looking at it, so I made sure to organize it better. And so this scene actually visually has a lot more going on than the Halloween show does. However, I was not good at organization. So this is all of these kind of tannish circles and lines are my 3D lights. I'm going to go ahead and just hide those here so it's a little easier for you guys to see what's going on. I can go ahead and I'm just going to unlock all of my layers so that I can turn them on and off as needed. I locked them too because I was getting so disorganized with everything. I didn't want to accidentally click something and drag it and screw it up. But right here, I've got all of these lights, and if I start disabling them, you can see where they're all contributing to. And then we've also got these porch lights here that I added these digital lights coming out underneath, which would be these ones right here. You can see those add a lot, and they really make it look more realistic. And you can see it's even casting a little bit of light on that night there to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional, and to make it look like the real lights here that aren't actually on are casting real light. Because if these lights were actually on, then it would light up the physical side of the house and the projection would not work. So obviously we can't have those lights on, so we did our best to do it digitally. It doesn't work super great, but it looks good enough, and it works pretty well. And a lot of it is stuff that's not even noticeable. Like, you wouldn't even notice that there's like 6 different 3D lights going on right here that, you know, fill in all these different key areas, because you can't see them. But if they weren't there, you would notice. Like, if I go in and then if I just turn off all these lights, you can see how weird it looks. It looks super dark, and the garage and the windows stick out. Just doesn't look good. So adding that 3D lighting really helps. Then if we do color correction as well, that's, again, a big thing. I don't worry about finding the correct colors for my textures when I'm doing things. Like this wallpaper originally, I think, was like gray or something. If I can go in and find wherever that was. Oh gosh, this is a mess. There it is. Okay. Let's do... I don't actually think this is the composition. Oh, no, this is. Okay, again, I didn't name anything properly either, so right here, if we go to the wallpaper, you can see this is the original color of it. Yeah, so it's kind of this shifty blue. Actually, isn't this one even tinted? No. Okay, so this is the original color of the wallpaper, and then I wanted it to make it more purpley because it didn't really fit in when it was that muted blue, so I added just the tint effect, which... Oh yeah, and also a brightness and contrast effect to help brighten it up, because then it was too dark when it was purple. And then you throw that in, and then I balanced out all of the wood textures, because the wood textures, oh, I guess that was in here too. the wood textures themselves are actually gray as well, as you can see, and that looks awful. So I use Lumetri Color to balance that back. If you don't know what Lumetri Color is, it's basically just After Effects built-in color correction, and it's fantastic. I use it on every little scene that I do, and all the little layers. Lumetri is really, really nice. So yeah, I balanced that all out, made it all match nicely. It all fits together. Same thing with the ground textures. Like if I go to the floor, this is the color that they originally were, is kind of this dark, kind of just ugly color, but then I brightened that up and added a little more vibrance to it. Then once you put that all together in here with your, or is it this one? Nope, it was this one. Then if you put that all together, then it all looks great together, and it all fills in all the little details and areas. They all blend together really well, and they look super, super nice. So also I've got the 3D lighting up here on the sign too to make it a little bit brighter. So composition, coloring, 3D lighting, texturing, making sure all of your colors are complementary to each other and that they all blend in well is really, really nice. Using brightness and contrast effects to bloom out some of the highlights, using glows, like for instance all of the dueling ghosts, or I think it's just these guys. I'll show you on these guys, it's better. So these are the eerie eyes from Atmos effects that are actually in this hole here. If I went through and disabled all of the effects, then this is what they would look like on their own. They're actually red. But then I started by throwing a blue tint onto them. Then that was too dark, so I added Video Copilot's free Color Vibrance plugin, which is an awesome plugin for adding like colorized glows. And then I threw on another glow. This is After Effects built-in glow. And then one more layer of brightness and contrast just to dial it in a little bit more. And that just gives it, as you can see, a very different look to the darker kind of subtle red color that it was before. I do that with the ghosts all on here to make them pop a little bit more, and with pretty much every other video element that I use that's this ghostly look or whatever, I use some sort of bloom or glow effect to pop out the highlights and to make it look a little more ethereal and to stand out from the backgrounds. One thing that we really lucked out with is these knights. Right here, they look really, really nice, especially when projected. They look 3D. Like it's mainly the lighting, but they look super 3D, which is really, really awesome. And these are actually in their own pre-comps because I wasn't able to rotate them because the lighting would have been off. So as you can see, it's just this little man right here. If we go in here, this is what the original image texture looks like for him. And then I had to mask out the background from him and just cut him out. I threw him in here, threw on all of these shadow and highlight effects. Most of them don't actually seem to be doing anything. I don't know why those are all on here. But he was pretty bright and kind of flat on his own, but then through all of the effects and editing and things like that, and then you take the basic house. Oh yeah, this is the basic house wallpaper, and then we build everything on top of it. If you guys were curious about that. Yeah, you build everything on that, you do your color correction, and then you put your 3D lights in, and it really looks like this light is being cast on him, you know, using a bit of the drop shadow like we talked about earlier in the background, and they look really, really 3D. So I think that's enough about the resources and texturing. Unless you guys have any other questions, again, you can comment those here in the chat if you do. But we're going to go ahead and move on now to, ooh, I dropped my phone. I apologize if that was loud. Okay. We're going to go on to some of the custom made effects that I did. So this isn't just stuff that I filmed. This is actually custom things that I've done with After Effects built-in plugins. So again, the majority of everything here is done with textures and video files that I found elsewhere. But we do have to create a couple things. For instance, like I talked about earlier, the Christmas show, the final particle finale scene here with the trees. We talked about where I got these, but also we're going to now talk about how I did the particle explosions and lens flares and things like that on here. And so to do the particle explosion, I've got a pre-comp here. As you can see, this is just what it really looks like. It's not that impressive on its own. It's just After Effects built-in particle system, which I've set to, I believe, explosion or something. I don't remember exactly where. I'd be in the physics. Yeah, explosive. I obviously would want to set that to explosive because that's what this is. And then I just keyframed the velocity and all of that, and you can mess around with the settings and fine tune it exactly how you want. Particle Systems is a really, really nice plugin. It's not as nice as something like Red Giant has with their particle plugin, Trapcode, but that's an extremely expensive plugin, and this one comes free with After Effects, so it suits the purpose just fine, and there's a lot you can do with it. I'll show you how I used a very similar effect to make the shattering ice effect in the Christmas show here in a little bit as well. But yeah, though this is custom, obviously made, and then to make the flicker, which it was really important to me that I was able to get this flicker. I could probably get this to render out. Oh yeah, there we go. It was really important that I got this little shimmer here at the end as they're starting to fade out, because I really liked how that looked, and with the sound design there's that little bit of twinkly in there, and so I wanted to make it twinkly. The way I did that was with a plugin called Twitch. This is also from Video Copilot. It is a paid plugin. You do have to buy it, but it is definitely worth it, especially in projection mapping. There's so much you're going to be able to do with it. When I made the lightning flashes, which are actually the most basic effect of the Halloween show, when I made those in here, in this opening scene, which is just this little tiny sliver right here, everything in here, all of these, again, this lightning assets, these are from Production Crate, these are their free lightning assets. All of the solids here, as you can see, have glows on them. Some of them I did have to use manual keyframing on to get it exactly how I wanted, but then with these other bigger layers and things like that, like in the light flash, I can use Twitch. And it works super, super nice. And you can see these are actually gray on their own, and then I threw on tint and made them blue. But it allowed me to give that strobing flicker effect to it, and it made it look like there was lightning flashing on the house. Same thing with here when I do the lightning in these windows and everything like that. Unfortunately, After Effects does not let you apply effects to 3D lights, so every time you see one of these lights flash in the Halloween show, I had to keyframe that manually, which was annoying, but it's totally doable. So Twitch, anyways, as a little tangent on Twitch. Twitch is a great plugin. I would definitely invest in it if you're planning on doing a lot of projection mapping, especially flickering lights or textures or things like that. It's you can do more than just flickers too. It has blur, color effects, scale effects, so you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with it, and you can fine tune it. Really, really useful plugin. And so yeah, that was basically just how I did this. Just different layers of particles that explode in different, their origin points are different so that they will match up with the tops of the stars. To make the lens flare, I again used Video Copilot's optical flares. This is again another premium plugin, but it's super nice. I don't use this one as much in projection mapping. I use it a lot in film and visual effects. I use it all the time, but I had this, so I figured why not use it. You can find plenty of free lens textures on Google. And then you can just keyframe their opacity or even their exposure and make them bloom out like that. As well as you can even find some pre-animated ones on YouTube. But this is inside of optical flares. I just have this little lens flare here that looks really nice. And then I have that keyframed for the brightness here so that I can change its brightness over time. And you can see I can really bloom that out if I really wanted to. I just have that keyframed. I can show you the keyframes there. Right there, so it fades in, blasts, and then fades out nice and slow. So that's kind of how I combine pre-made effects with then custom ones inside of After Effects. I like that. And again, the majority of the stuff I do is all just resources from other sites, and then I just comp them together with masks and glow effects and things like that to make them look good. But we do, of course, make a couple original effects like that. And then I've got another glow layer on here just to help pop it a little bit more. And then one more on this final. I don't have one here. This is just the masks layer. But yeah. Also, again, like I said, I've shot a lot of custom effects ourselves. That's all of what Hauntworks is custom made effects. If I go, I wonder what folder has the most. I mean, I guess we can do this one. Like, for instance, one of the few ghosts that we did shoot for the Halloween show, we shot the dueling ghosts. That was the very first thing I actually ever did for the projection show, was the dueling ghosts. But we also shot this video. I'll do that through here. I think I have more. Oh, no, it's the same folder. Okay. But right here, like, for instance, this is the original video file that we shot for Ghost Jane. hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. But basically, right here we got this. This is the exact spot on the house where we wanted to project it. So we shot it from a straight-on angle with the green screen, and Becky in her ghost lady dress here, and then Jeff's back there with the green screen walking it along so that it follows with her. And that is the exact spot that we wanted to project it on in real life. So we filmed it from there. Then what I did is inside of After Effects, I obviously keyed out the green. I had to do a little rotoscoping on her feet because there was a little gap between the green screens. But After Effects has a fantastic rotoscoping tool. And so you can see this is what it looks like, just completely cut out. Then I threw on all of my effects and everything like that, as you can see here. To do that, it's pretty easy. Like for this one, I just keyframed the opacity of a black solid so that she would fade in, and then just used some stock acid smoke that I found, tinted blue. And then for her actual like aberration effects and stuff like that, it was just using the Gaussian noise plugin in After Effects, which comes built in. And then just setting that to a track matte and some tint effects, some glow effects, a little heat distortion effect, you know, and that created that really cool little ghost. I made it match in as best as I could with the Atmos effects ghosts, and then this is the final look of how it was actually projected. So I took it and rotated it in 3D space, and this is how it looks on the final show, so that it is projected in the correct position. So we take it from this flat layer, rotate it in 3D space, and put it up to the right spot, so that let's see, I believe that is, she is right. Is this the portrait scene? Let's see, Ghost Jane. No, she's back here. Yeah, right here. So this is also the ghostly effect that I made the house appear. Same thing, exactly as how I did with the ghost. Just a black solid with a glow effect. Faded the opacity, and so that it made it look like this kind of ghostly effect fading in, right? So nothing crazy there. Pretty simple little effects. But yeah, we have her maps. Should be right about there. Is After Effects not gonna load? Oh, Ghost Jane's over here. Okay, I was like, what? But yeah, you can see her. She's mapped along here. I did have to scale it a little bit just because the perspective changed a little bit, so I just keyframed the scale over time. Not a big deal. And in the end, you can see we filmed it from the camera in real life was right about here, and we filmed her walking down the stairs right here. And then in the end, it allowed for the projection, as you can see, for her to actually walk down the stairs. So it looks like the ghost was physically walking down the stairs, which is a really cool little detail that I wanted to try out, because I was like combining reality with the projections, and it made it look overall super realistic, and it looks like she's walking down the stairs in real life. It's pretty cool. So yeah, lots of custom effects that we filmed, mostly ghosts and things like that. This is a fun little behind the scenes look at the escape clause effect that we used for the final scene of the Christmas show. This is what the original file looked like. Sorry, these are kind of small resolution, by the way. This is just captured directly out of After Effects, so it's not great quality. But started with the green screen, then roughly masked it out, keyed it out, scaled it, and then inverted it and made it black, just so that it was a silhouette. And then I threw on my window projection background there, and that gave us the full look. I don't have the other image of like when I added the chimney and stuff, but that was easy. I just drew a chimney effect, or a chimney shape, and put that in there. And then I think that was everything for custom effects. For doing things like the curtains, which I got a lot of people interested on how I did that too. I did actually release these for free on Hauntworks, as some of you guys know. You can go download the exact curtains that I used for free. So I modeled these inside of Blender. First time using Blender, but I made this this odd shape and then just cut some holes in it and made it look like an old curtain. Then inside of Unreal Engine, which is a game engine, then I used the cloth simulation and did some vertex painting on it like that, cloth painting. And then I threw on my wind materials, and then in the end, it gives us this really nice wind effect. And I rendered this out with a black background because I knew I'd be wanting to key it out in After Effects, so that's how I did it. But again, that is for free up on Hauntworks if you guys are interested in using those curtains for yourself in your own projection shows. This is also kind of a random tangent, but this right here, is what the projection resolution is. When we had our first projector, which was a lot cheaper and it had a less lumens and it was lower resolution, this is what it looked like. So this was the pixel count when it was projected onto the house. But when we upgraded the projector, you can see that it almost, or if not more than doubled the projection or the pixel size. So that allowed for more detail, because I was struggling with making I made 4K resolution files in After Effects and I rendered it out in this huge file, but when it was projected it looked really, really bad and low quality. And we discovered that was because it was the projector, not the actual video files. So if you're having low resolution issues, check your projector settings, but most of the time it's going to be an issue that your projector doesn't have high enough resolution and not an issue with your video file. So yeah, just a little side note there if you're having issues with that. This right here, we're going to actually move on to the audio section now, because audio is incredibly important, especially when you're doing stuff like this. This is true for any visual art, especially in film. The saying is sound is 70% of what you see, and that is 100% true. If you saw the Halloween or Christmas show that I did for Baird Manor with no sound, it would be not nearly as impactful as it is with the sound. So we're going to jump on over to Premiere now. This is the Halloween show's audio here, as you can see. Again, what I do is I always just render out the final file from After Effects into a MP4 file so that I don't have to worry about render times or all of those massive layers. Plus, After Effects is not designed for sound. It is made for visual effects and compositing, and doing sound design in there would be a lot more difficult. So I just render it out here. I also had to retime some of it, and I switched some of the scenes around. I did that more in the Christmas show as well. I chopped out some of the scenes and I switched their order of them a little bit. But that's easy to do when I transition between the different scenes. I usually leave a little bit of black space in there, and so that helps so that I can choose if I want to extend that or cut it out. Then I can chop the scenes around and reorganize it. But here is all the sound design. We'll go ahead and I'm just going to expand this here so we can see it a little easier. And then I can zoom in. So for instance, the clock that ticks at the very beginning of the Christmas or Halloween show, you can see all of the individual little ticks and everything that go into it right there. And all of that synchronized up. I use a program called Soundly for all of my sound. It's like a $13 a month subscription. You can get a free version of it. It has limited sounds, but you can also import your own and use it just kind of like a search tool, and it's really, really useful. But yeah, I usually just pay the $13 for 1 month when I'm doing this. Like I did that for the Halloween show, and then I bought it the next month for the Christmas show. It's ludicrously helpful because they have literally any sound possible, any sound you could ever think of, or ones you didn't even know you wanted. You can get it through Soundly, and it's this really nice little plugin that just, you download it externally, choose the sound, chop out a section, and drag it right into whatever software you're using. It doesn't have to be After Effects or Premiere. You drag it into Audacity, you can drag it into literally Final Cut, you can drag it into HitFilm, DaVinci Resolve, any program that you're using, just drag and drop. It's really, really nice. Again, like this right here, as you can see, a huge line. This has all 22 of our audio tracks on it, or I guess 21. But for one short second, this is the thunder and lightning sound effects part. So if I go ahead and play this. So now if we take that and we mute the sound, if we just solo that, and now if you watch that scene back, it's way less impactful. But having that sound design in there, it just makes it so much better. And it amplifies the spook factor or whatever you're making, especially, it doesn't have to be just Halloween. Any holiday, whatever you're projecting, the sound design will amplify the visuals so much. So don't ever overlook sound. It's almost more important than how your actual projection looks. The sound design is incredibly important. So you can go through here. I've got all of the music tracks. This is a little snippet from the Phantom Manor suite, which is by far my favorite of the Haunted Mansion soundtracks. They've got there's Haunted Mansion, there's Phantom Manor, There's Mystic Manor, all the different ones that are kind of technically Haunted Mansion. They fall into that same. Mystic Manor doesn't, but like Phantom Manor and Haunted Mansion do. It's their own take on it, but yeah. So I that's definitely my favorite soundtrack out of all of them. So I use just a little snippet of that here. And then I have the original soundtrack, which is right here, that I used for the majority of the show. And that is one that I scored myself. I did all of the music design for that, and obviously hinging off of Haunted Mansion even more. It's very directly inspired, as the entire show is, very directly inspired by Haunted Mansion, Phantom Manor, and the Disney soundtracks and suites. But it's got a little bit of our own original flair in there. I've got a little bit of the original Baird Manor theme, as well as mixed in with some Phantom Manor and regular Haunted Mansion, especially once we get into like right here. So you can see that's pretty much directly just Haunted Mansion right there. But it's my own little variation and sound to it. But yeah, the sound design here accentuated it so much, and there was no way I could have ever found music that fit nearly as perfect as it did. I actually scored the show before I finished it, so I made the soundtrack when I had just barely started on the ballroom scene, and then I finished out the track, made the rest of it, and then I mapped the rest of the show to it. So I made both interlock and fit together perfectly. Works out great. Now for the Christmas show, on the other hand, it was a lot more difficult. You can see the sound design for this one's actually a lot more simplistic, partly because it's shorter, and just because, especially with Halloween and horror and doing that, the sound design is even more important. With Christmas, you throw on some jingle bells, some cheerful sounds, or some cheerful music, and then, maybe just some happy sounds of, like the elves, walking around or whatever, like we did in the... this scene right here, so it's actually very minimal sound design. As you can see, I've got the music, I have got the background noises on these couple of tracks, and then I've got I think I've got like some gears, I've got some clanking metal, I've got some, this is actually like one of them's like police radio chatter or something. It's like the only thing I could find that sounded good. And then we've got like the little data beeps and glitches for these little control panels. So very simplistic, but it fills out the scene. It makes it feel alive. It makes it feel very alive. I don't know why I'm struggling on that. It makes it feel alive. And that's kind of how I go out throughout the rest of it. Doing the footsteps for this last scene are the worst. I hate doing footstep Foley. Oh yeah, that's right here. That's right. I've done footstep Foley on so much stuff in the past, on films and in the projection mapping. It's not fun, but it really, really helps. If I were to go in and, for instance, if we take out all of the audio sounds for, let's see, let me make sure I get all these. Santa vocals, bells, boots, and then we've got the elf sounds. So we're just going to go ahead and take out the Santa sounds for now. If I play this back with just the music and then no sounds for Santa, I'll let you hear how this kind of sounds a little bit. So you can see it feels kind of dead. It feels like there's nothing really going on. You hear the music, but that's it. You can see the shadow of Santa, but that's about it. There's really nothing else there. If I unmute this here, I'm actually going to turn up the audio here for you guys a little bit there. There we go. Oh, sorry for that. Then now we're going to go ahead and listen to the full mix with all of his Foley in there. So you can see we've got the footsteps in there. We've got the little bells that hit every time he makes a footstep, and then we've got his little vocal sounds here. Now those are all built out in their own little nested sequences. I do it in nested sequences so that I can add reverb and all of that collectively rather than having to do it individually. And so there's all the individual footstep sounds. Yeah, so Foley, sound design, incredibly important when you're trying to make a convincing and immersive show, especially if you're listening in your car through the radio, having those big speakers in there where you can really hear and see all the details. You'd miss so much of it. For instance, you'd miss I guarantee you, if you were just watching the show and you didn't have any of the sound design there, you would, when the elf gets to here, you would miss what's going on up here because you would be more focused on the bigger picture here. So while that is the primary focus, we also need to pull some interest back up to here with Santa up in this window. So we do that with subtle sound design in the footsteps. So controlling your viewer's eye, especially when you have like a big surface like this that you're projection mapping on, controlling your viewer's eye with sound design is very, very important. Obviously, you do that. The majority of controlling them is with the visuals. That's where you direct your eye. But sound design can also be very, very helpful in regards to that. And so I think that roughly covers sound design. Nothing else really super special here. I didn't compose any of the music for this. I found it all online. It took me a while to find something that fit, and it doesn't fit as well as the Halloween show does, but that's because it's not scored custom, obviously. I did write the little bit at the very end here for this finale scene, that little bit of piano and string sections that play in the background. I did do that little bit just because I needed something super specific for that, but not hard to do. So, yeah, that's about it there. I'm trying to think... again, just kind of rough overview of everything is that it's really simple to do. It's basically just masking, rotating 3D layers, color correction, finding your sources on Google, and then just compositing it all together. After Effects is obviously my main go-to. It's my main software. It's what I've used for years and years for visual effects, so I'm very comfortable in it. And even Disney uses it for a lot of their stuff. So it's extremely versatile, way more versatile than like if you used a dedicated projection mapping software, because in a projection mapping software, it limits you to what they deem necessary effects for creating projection effects. But in After Effects, it's so broad because this is industry standard visual effects software and compositing, so it's not limited to anything really. You've got this huge library of built-in effects. You can get plugins, all sorts of stuff like that. Most of the stuff that I use to create these shows would not be considered projection mapping effects. Like, you know, you might have some like your glows or your color corrections or things like that, but all of this other stuff, especially like the 3D lights and things like that, is literally just what you would get in any compositing software. It doesn't have to be specific to projection mapping. So it's a lot more free, and it's a lot more open, and you have a lot more creative freedom. Even though After Effects, can look super daunting, especially if you get into some of the super complex like 3D stuff, then yeah, it can look scary. But it's actually pretty simplistic, especially if you're only using the basic tools like your masking and your 3D rotations and things like that. It's all actually pretty basic. So again, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials where you guys can look that stuff up. You can figure it out, and then you can just experiment. And that's another big part of it, is just experiment, practice. You might not be good at first, but you'll, with time and practice and effort, you'll get better. And it's all just about composition and, making things fit together well, making them look good. And obviously when you actually project it onto your house, you're going to have to make some adjustments. For the Halloween show, we made so many different versions. If I go to the finals and then the old, you can see, look at all these different versions that we have. Not all of them are full shows. A lot of them are. But you can see we even got individually fixed sections like Fire fixed, the gallery fixed, Phase 1, Pass 1, Phase 1, Pass 2, all the way up to V8. We had 8 different full versions of the show before we landed on the final one. So lots of fine-tuning and tweaking that you can't always get right out of the box when you do your first pass. So, make the map, make the show, go out, test it on your house, come back into your compositing software, figure out what you need to change, what you need to make brighter, what you need to make darker, what you need to balance with the colors more. The color of your house is going to drastically change what you need to do. Like if we look at the actual image of Jeff's house here, you can see that it's kind of this off-whitish gray, but it's still a very light color, and the shingles are kind of this dark brown color here. So that makes it hard to project onto here. So when we do project onto the roof surface, I really, really bloom out the highlights. For instance, actually I'll show you in the Halloween show. In this scene here, you can see that this roof is way brighter than I would actually want for the shingles. I would not actually want the final look to be like that. I want it to be a lot darker, so I'd want it to be more... if I show you the original image, yeah, this is what it looks like without any of the 3D lighting. It's way, way, way too bright. I don't like how that looks at all, but I wanted it brighter so that by the time it does project onto here, when it mixes with this darker tone and the auburn red in here, or brown, then it will come back to a tone that I like. So if I go to the roof here, you can see I've got this tint effect. So this is actually a little bit closer to what I was wanting, is something that was a little more on the gray side, but I had to add that green in there so that it would show up properly on here. Otherwise it just looked like black, and I didn't quite want black because I was basing it off of this shingle design here, and I wanted it to have a little bit more color to it. So yeah, taking it out, testing it, figuring out what you need to change, trial and error, you know, and getting to that point. Okay, well, let me just check my list real quick. I know I said I was going to try to keep this organized, but it's not been super organized, so apologies for that. Let's see, I don't think I had anything else specifically that I needed to cover on my list. Obviously, there's lots of little details and things that you can go into, and lots of specific effects, and how I do really, really specific things in here. But that would take hours and hours and hours to go through every single little detail and how I mapped every little thing. So for any of you guys watching, it still looks like we don't have a ton of people here on the stream. But if there's any of you guys here, that all 8 of you that are watching live right now, if you have any comments or questions you would like to see, anything in specific that you would like me to go over, feel free to go ahead and type that in the chat. I should be able to see that here. I have it just off the screen. And yeah, I'll feel free to answer any of those for you. And that goes for anyone watching this in the future too. If you guys have any comments or questions and you guys weren't able to attend live, you can do it just like you could on any other video. Go ahead and, you know, just comment down below, and I'll answer those through the form of text, just a YouTube reply. It's less good, but I can still do it for you. All right, so lumen size of projector, how far away from the house? Okay, so this would actually be a video that we already have up on Baird Manor. I'm going to go ahead and I will just pull that up here for you guys real quick so you can see it. And let's see, so that would be under his, he has a whole video on that actually, and I can add that to the description too if we need to. But I will go to, oh man, there's lots of videos, got to scroll through them. The projector box video, here it is. So right here, this is the video that you'd want to go to over on Baird Manor's channel, where he talks about how he did the box, how he gets the angle right, and everything like that. As far as the lumen size of the projector, that would be, I believe he didn't update it in this one. He does on the videos here though. If you scroll down, you'll see he has the projector as an Amazon link here. So this is the projector that we used. So you can see here the lumen size is 4,000 lumens, quite nice and bright, and it's a short throw projector, which is very important. So your version of After Effects is paid per month. Yes, it is. I have the Creative Cloud, so I pay, I think it's like $30 a month, and I get the entire Adobe suite. So I get After Effects, Premiere, Lightroom, Audition, Spark, Photoshop, everything that Adobe offers, I can get it for $30 a month. They have a student version as well. So if, you know, that's what I originally started out with, and I got it for like $15 a month, which was great. But now I'm up to the full subscription. But it's definitely been worth it. $30 a month is fantastic. When it comes to rendering this kind of show, how long would you, oh, sorry, I'm reading that wrong. Let's see. Yeah, so basically just asking what kind of computer it takes. So this, yeah, for After Effects, they recommend at least, I think 8 gigabytes of RAM is the absolute minimum that they require, but I have 16, and that's even a little bit low. So like if you have the budget, I would really recommend like 32 gigs of RAM, but 16 gigs will get you by no problem, especially if you're not doing tons and tons and tons of 3D work. For me, I am doing a decent amount of 3D work, so it is very slow. That's why I haven't been like RAM previewing this entire time that I'm streaming, is because it would be very, very slow. And that's a problem that I do have, is that I can't, especially with the Halloween show, I couldn't preview a lot of it live, so I had to like render it out or watch it in a super low resolution version. That's also why we did so many test versions of it, is because my computer isn't super great. This computer, I custom built it for like only $500, which is really cheap. And it was built to be a gaming PC, but I use it for editing. So it's got 16 gigs of RAM. I don't remember all of the other specs, but it runs. It runs pretty well. So if you get any computer that's rated above 16 gigs of RAM, has GPUs are incredibly important. It won't handle it very well if you use just the CPU. So GPU is something important. If you get any computer that's built for editing or gaming, then you should be fine. And again, that all just depends on what level of detail that you're pumping into it too. If you're just doing shape layers and throwing on some basic video effects and things like that, then you could probably get away with like a super cheap laptop. But if you are doing stuff a little bit more in depth, then you will need a little bit more power behind it. If 8 gigabytes only on your laptop, we should be able to render it, but very slow. Yes, you can render it. It once again depends on the size of your project file, but I use Adobe Media Encoder to render. That comes free with After Effects and Premiere, as opposed to After Effects built in what is it called? Let's see, the render queue. Yeah, so I use the Media Encoder as opposed to render queue, because render queue is a lot slower. It makes your project file absolutely massive. Like I rendered out the first test scene we did like way back when, and it was like a 20-second clip, and it didn't have any 3D layers or anything, and it was like 20 gigabytes big, and it was crazy. I don't know why it's so big. Probably something I'm screwing up somewhere in there. But Media Encoder is much quicker. It's much easier for your PC. It has a lot more configuration settings. And yeah, you can render it out even if you only have 8 gigs of RAM. It'll just take a while. I usually, it takes a while on this PC, but I'll just get the render started before I go to bed. I wake up in the morning and it's usually done. Yeah, you can definitely render it out. You might run into an occasional crash here and there, especially if you're trying to render out something super big. So I would always make a backup version of your project file before you do that. But yeah, it's definitely doable to do it on a lower end PC. Just requires a lot more patience. All right. Let's see. Got anyone has any other questions here for us? If not, that's all right. I'll go ahead and I guess I'll just wrap up here for you guys. Again, if you have any other questions, and if you missed the stream, or if you think of any after the stream, go ahead, comment those down below. I'll be keeping an eye on the comments section. I do across my whole channel, but I'll specifically be keeping an eye on this show or on this stream. You guys can comment down below. I will respond to it, and I can help you guys out with that. So yeah, in summary here, I just wanted to say that again, this is all just something that takes time. It takes time to do, but it's not hard. It's simple, but tedious. So it doesn't take a lot of skill. It doesn't take a lot of insane amounts of creativity or a genius or skill inside of After Effects, experience, anything like that. It just, as long as you learn the basic tools like masking and 3D layers and using lights, you can do so much with it. And again, there's plenty of tutorials online for YouTube. If you just search up After Effects tutorials, you will get thousands and thousands of results. And all of the tools that I use are basic After Effects tools. And so they can be applied to anything you do in After Effects, but also projection mapping. So yeah, thanks Liz, I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. Yeah, so if you guys, again, have any questions, let me know. I appreciate you guys tuning into the stream today. If you want any more behind-the-scenes content, please let me know as well. I can go into more specific areas and make specific videos about that. Because I know that there's some people who would be interested in maybe the music production side of it, how I created the soundtrack, or I have done some behind the scenes videos already. Like I did do behind the scenes of how I made these portraits for the the portrait scene of the Halloween show. I have a tutorial for how you guys can make your own versions of those. I definitely do plan on doing more behind the scenes content in the future, maybe not directly related to projection mapping, but definitely towards digital effects and things like that. So yeah, let's see, how much would it cost for you to put my show on your house, my show on your house? I unfortunately do not do custom work. That's another question I've been getting a lot of people asking. There's quite a few reasons for it. The main reason is that it takes so long to do. Like this Halloween show, 6 months of work. I wasn't working on it actively every single day, but collectively 6 months of work went into the show. And so especially if I was doing commissions, I've been getting so many commissions or people requesting custom shows and things like that. And if I was to do all of those, it would take more time than is humanly possible, and I just wouldn't be able to do it all. Plus, if you guys are wanting this amount of detail, then it's going to require a budget level, even just to cover the base level of hours that would have to go into it, that most people wouldn't be able to afford. So unfortunately, I don't do custom work. It's something that I would potentially be open to in the future if I could find a reliable, efficient, and compact way to do it. But even then, I would still only be able to do at most 3 or 4 shows a year, because I would just, if everybody's wanting this much amount of detail, there's just no way I'd be able to do it for everyone. As far as taking this show in specific and putting it onto your house, I can't do that either, because this is Baird Manor's specific show, and it really doesn't translate well because everything is mapped specifically to the shape of the house. So to remap it to a different house, I would basically have to start completely from scratch. I would have all of the base files, but I would have to redo everything. So it's not really something that can be translated to a different house very well. If you were interested in doing something like this yourself, you can find similar textures and things like that, and you can obviously try to make it as close to it as you can. But also, I am all for originality and individuality with your shows. Don't be another copy and paste display. Make it your own. That's something that was really important to us with this show, is that we made it super unique and original. This is Baird Manor's show, right? This is a show that you're not going to see anywhere else with projection mapping, and we're trying to be Disney without being Disney, if that makes sense. So Disney is our inspiration, but we wanted to throw in that original twist. Thus, we have Baird Manor. So hopefully that answers your question. Unfortunately, I don't do custom mapping, but like I said, it's super simple for you guys to do yourself. Just requires a lot of time. And by doing videos like this, I hope to teach you guys some stuff like that so that you can do it yourself. And trust me, it's way, way, way more rewarding if you've made the show yourself and then get to see it pay off. It's incredible. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you learned something. I know it's still kind of all over the place despite me trying to kind of keep it organized. So especially for any of you guys watching in the future, apologies if it's not the most intriguing thing ever. But yeah, hopefully you guys learned something good, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks. Bye, guys.